So, welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Beyond with Liz. I'm so excited to have my special friend, Avonne, here.
Yeah.
She is a photographer based in North Carolina, but she travels all around the world. And I'm really excited for you to be here. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to be here.
So, we were having a conversation because I feel like the way that editorials have been used over the last few years we've seen some good shifts and some bad shifts. And so, I have always used editorials in my business when I'm trying to communicate something to a potential client. And
hmm
so, I know you've done a lot of editorials, you've hosted a lot of editorials. Like, do you feel that they have been beneficial to your business?
Yes, because it definitely, I feel like you have to create what you want to attract, obviously, as we know. But I do feel like there's a level of like artistic ability that has to go into the editorial for it to benefit you. It can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to stand in front of this beautiful tablescape with a couple and then I'm going to expect to book, all these kinds of beautiful luxury weddings. I feel like you have to be able to create your own voice and your own style and your own being, I guess, when you do these editorials. So you have to use what you're given at an editorial and be like, how can I make this unique to me? Or that if someone wants to come and book with me with this kind of look, they know that like she's gonna do this, but she's gonna have us like running across the table, and like the table will be like in focus, but we'll be blurry. It's just like that kind of thing. So I think it's helped me in a way of not only attracting what I want to book, but also sharpening my creative mind to practice skill, to try new things out, especially film, trying new film stocks out or trying different posing that I'm like, oh, I would love to try this, but I don't know how it's going to look or I don't know how I can dictate that to a client. So that's a perfect time for you to like practice your like prompts and like things like that. It's definitely helped me in that way, to kind of sharpen my artistic skill in that way, but also booking things as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So same with me. Like I've always done editorials.
hmm
Especially like you said, when it comes to film, when I was learning film, I did a lot of my work on editorials to kind of
hmm
figure things out and like, oh, what type of lighting that I wanted. I know that in the industry right now, there's also like a really big push, like from the planner side, like, oh, don't show editorials, don't do that. But I really feel like for photographers, we have to have them, and you have to have them in your portfolio because you just sometimes won't get access to the locations or to those type of things that those editorials bring. And so being able to shoot them and have them in your portfolio is really important. But I
hmm
do want to say we have to be cautious because if you have a table in the middle of a field, people know that that's not real.
Exactly. Yeah. It has to be realistic and it has to be, you have to think like, and I hate for it to sound like a business, but you have to think like the consumer. Like
Yeah.
the average, bride and groom, like the average person who comes to book you, unless they are in the luxury space with a luxury planner that's kind of guiding them on like what is in, what is not, blah, blah, blah. But the average person is like, girl, I don't know what the
Mhm.
heck I'm doing. I'm just going to do what is unique to us. But sometimes you have to show them what they don't know that they need. And sometimes you can do that through an editorial of like, here's some inspiration of where you can go for your wedding, but let's make it unique to you. And then they'll be like, oh, wow, like I wasn't thinking on like putting like the chandelier on the table as the decor. Oh, but then they saw it on an editorial and it was like, that's so unique. But then it's just, they're just regular people, but then they just have like a little elevated extraness, for their wedding because, we are like inspiring the industry in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And I feel too, like even from your standpoint as a photographer, like you said, it's your time to play, it's your time to figure things
hmm
out and to test things. And I feel like because on wedding days, a lot of times, of course, we're shooting for the client and then ourselves artistically, but sometimes you're just not able to do everything that you want. And
Yeah.
so being able
Yeah.
to have that creative freedom during an editorial has been very beneficial to me. And to
Yeah.
be able to like have the portfolio look in a way where it's like I know what I'm doing. I just don't have access to these type of weddings to show you that I can shoot them. And that communication was really, really important to me. Like I did this one style shoot, I think it was like 2018.
hmm
And I knew that my bride was an African American bride and she was getting married at these luxury venues, but she didn't see herself. And she didn't
Yeah.
see herself in the way that she was getting married, like in terms of her decor, her attire. Like it just was a lack of options for her to pick from. So
Hmm.
I did that editorial in a way to communicate to that person. And it did really, really well because I went into it knowing who I was communicating to. And I
Yeah.
want to say that as well. Like if there's someone or, type of client you're trying to go after, it's really important for you to allow them to inspire you in the direction that you want to
You
shoot.
want them to go. Exactly. Yeah. Even for me, when I do put on my, like before I started to do like workshops, I guess, with Cultivate or putting on editorials for other people to come and shoot, I would just do my own, like for just creative sake. I just wanted one a year to where I could just be like, I just want to do whatever the heck I want. But I always made it a point to use an African American couple. It was big for me because, like you said, we don't see a lot of the times, in the wedding industry, we don't see ourselves in that softer space where like we can also be beautiful and elegant and ride on a horse in the sunset with our hair flying in the wind. We could do that as well. And I wanted to like show that as well with us. So I did a editorial a couple years ago, and it was a 40s Vogue like inspiration because I used to collect Vogue magazines when I was younger, and it's really been a really big stepping stone for me is as far as like inspiration for my work and things like that because I've always loved just old Vogue magazines from the 40s. And I just was like, I would love to just have like a really wide brim hat, like over the eye, really like vaudeville kind of, I grew up in the theater as well, so it was very big for me to have period pieces and period shoots, but just showcase us because even back then, historically, we weren't in those types of spaces, where we had like the beautiful like mink coats and like and
Yeah.
so I just was like, I really wanted to do that, but bring that to the wedding space. So I got like a beautiful gown with like a massive bow on the back, beautiful, like curvy bride, dark skin like me. And I just wanted to show us in that way. And it went everywhere. And I was so excited, not even for like, the publications and things. I just wanted those photos to just trickle through the internet of like, this
Yeah.
is something that you can, especially like for us, like if we want to
Yeah.
go on Pinterest and see us, at least I would have helped a little bit. We're just having that on Pinterest now. So if someone wants to pin it and they're like, I really want to be that kind of soft bride, but I just don't see it. At least now there's like something on Pinterest where
Yeah.
like you can see it now. And that was
Yeah.
big. It was just big for me. And
Yeah. I
still,
love
even
that.
now. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's a really big element with photographers, even
Hmm.
taking a step further and being able to say, like, if you have something that's near and dear to your heart and a community that's near and dear to your heart, this is your opportunity to be able to show them in a light that you haven't seen. And I think imagery is very powerful in being able to shake up those norms and
Yeah.
you being in control of doing that. I feel like that is something that we understate in the wedding industry, and being able to say we do have the power to be able to do that. We do
Yeah.
have the capability to change some of these stereotypes or narratives just by being able to have these different type of shoots. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful point to add.
Yeah. And I also wanted to add, I think, like piggybacking off of that as well, a lot of photographers that I hear like on a normal basis are like, I really want to get into the destination wedding space, want to just do more and more weddings like across the ocean. And I'm like, okay, that's wonderful, but it's not just traveling. You have to be susceptible to culture and skin tone, ways of life. You can't go and shoot an Italian wedding in Italy and have the couple be Italian and then bring our American ways to it, thinking that it's going to go like an American wedding. It's all of that. And you have to be really, in order to be a really good, I guess, destination wedding photographer in the sense of that is like what you do all the time, you have to really understand the beauty and the important skill of honing in on skin tones. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna have like African American couple and then I'm good. No, honey, because African Americans are marrying Asians and then Asians are marrying people from the Middle East and
Yes.
there's different undertones and then there's families who have different undertones. I mean, I'm also in a mixed relationship and My now husband is a British Scottish male. So it's like you have to understand and having those kinds of things, which I think editorials also help with,
Yeah, I think it
exploring
does.
different skin tones, bringing that together
It
and
does.
practicing your skills so that when you get that couple in Italy and
You
you
know how to
know,
handle it.
you know how to handle it and you won't even be like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to put them, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And I just want to do a little plug. We have a whole episode with Alicia Rinka talking about skin tones and that very issue because I feel like it's really important. And to be able to use your editorials, like you said, at a way to practice so that way you really understand what that looks like, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
something
definitely.
else too that I feel like with editorials that we don't talk enough about is like when you put them together is the cost. And
Yeah.
I think that that's a big part of it. I think the days gone are the days where you can get a lot of people to collaborate and collaborate with no cost. Like
We have
venues,
bills to pay.
yes, and venues are not, wanting to do editorials anymore. Unfortunately, we've had some bad actors in the industry when it comes to photographers or just venue vendors, and a lot of the venues don't want to participate. And
Mm-hmm.
so how would what would you suggest for a photographer in navigating that when it comes to the cost of an editorial?
Well, you would have to think of how would you feel if someone just asked you, "Hey, come shoot my wedding for free." Most photographers would be like, "No. I need to like, especially when if a planner asks us or if a planner is putting on a shoot and they say, I would really love for you to shoot our editorial." A lot of the time, because it's a style that the photographer may want, they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, I'll shoot it for free." But I'm like, do you realize that even with this, you have to like conceptualize, you have to edit probably within a quicker time than you would for a wedding. Get these photos out, it's going to get published. Most of the time, it's just going to be published for content and there sometimes you'll get like some buyback from it and you'll get like a client that's like, "Oh, I saw your editorial on brides.com and I want to book you from that." But I feel like the best way to navigate it is understanding that if you are wanting someone to come and help you to do something, ask them what their price is first. And then if they say, "Well, no, I really just want this to be a collaborative thing," then okay. But I wouldn't go into it automatically assuming that someone's going to do it for free. For one, I think that's a little disrespectful. And two, it's just a sense of just love in the industry and just understanding that like that's someone's time that they could be booking with someone else or being at home with their children. Because I know you have children and it's like I would never just ask you to be like, "Hey, just come and shoot this for me for free." And I'm like, okay, but my kids need school clothes and things like I feel like you just have to go in with the premise of I'm already going to pay you, but if you say to me I would love to just collaborate, then okay, cool, then we can just go from there. But I just expect every time I go in, especially people who are doing a service where they have to use product like hair and makeup, florals, even the models, a lot of the time, especially if you hire a professional model, this is their job. So they're not going to come and just work for free because then they're going to be doing time for print for everything. And it's like that's they can't live off of that. So yeah, just paying everybody. And then if they say no, then okay.
I mean, I agree with you, and I feel like one of the things I would say to anyone, like you said, don't expect anything for free, but we are providing, like when it comes to photographers, like you're getting the images. So don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't be afraid to limit images or saying like I'm like you own what you're creating. So like
Yeah,
if a
definitely.
venue is not willing to negotiate with you and you paid to be there and then they're trying to use your images for their website, it's like no, you need to pay for those. Or you need to
Yeah.
refund me the what I paid for the venue because that's happened to me before where something did really well on social and like I gave them credit, but I did not tag the business. And I'm sorry, I was being petty. I really was. I was because like they were really strict and I was like, I know this is going to do well. I'm always going to credit you. So I gave you credit,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to link to your Instagram because you didn't pay for I didn't pay, like I paid for this, you know? So I
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
say that like you are in control in that way and don't be,
And don't be afraid to reach out to them and be like, "Hey, this is not what we agreed on.
yes.
We need to talk about payment," because that happens too. I did a shoot not too long ago where I was shooting at a hotel, but the wedding style shoot was at a hotel. And I wasn't aware that when I got to this shoot, I'm going to be doing like flat lays for the hotel and like different branded things with their robes and things like this. And I was like,
This is a shoot.
this is going into commercial
Yeah.
now. This is commercial branding. And I also do branding. So I'm like,
Yeah.
we're going to have to talk about this. But then, especially too, especially for a hotel as big as that one, you can't expect a photographer to not want to be tagged, not for the clout,
Yeah.
not because, oh, you have, 200,000 followers and I need, but you also are using someone's work without tagging them. It's plagiarizing is literally through everything. It's not just from college. You can't use someone's work and then one put it on your Instagram, change all of the look of the photo
Yeah.
so it could fit your feed, especially if if the photographer is a little lighter than what you want or a little darker than what you want. You don't get the right to go into any kind of software and change their look just so it can fit your feed and then not tag them. Like, that's not okay. That's not
Yeah,
okay ever.
it's not
Ever.
okay. And it definitely happens. And like you said, like those, like I used to do editorials off the strength of like, oh, we're going to build a relationship. And then
Yeah.
now when I do editorials, we have a contract. We have
Mhm.
an outline of what you can and cannot do and like what
Yeah.
this looks like because a lot of times if I'm going to invest in a location because that's more so what I'm doing at this stage of my career. It's like I need to shoot in certain places around the world so that
Hmm.
I'm continue to book those type of clientele. So if I'm at the
Yeah.
Ritz and I'm shooting there, it's like we need to have some sort of understanding. You get one image
Yeah.
that you can use for
Yeah.
allowing me to be there. And if you want
Yeah.
more than one image, then
Then you have to purchase them.
you have to purchase it. And
Yeah.
even one
Yeah.
year image for 1 year, the usage of the image of how long you can use it. So like I
Yeah.
just want to say again, like you are very powerful as the photographer in what you create and the art that you create. Even though you're trying to do these editorials to further your business, you need to leverage them in every shape and form
Yeah.
in the way that it looks. But don't be afraid to invest because that editorial that I talked to you about that did really well for me, I think it got 1 million impressions like within the first like 3 days.
Nice.
It did.
Okay. Yeah.
Girl, it really changed the trajectory of my career, and I had to pay for that. Like, I had to pay for the
Yeah.
film. I think altogether I spent like maybe $3,000 on that shoot, but
Hmm.
I really
Hmm.
saw a really good investment or return on my investment. It was
Yeah.
scary up front because it's like I'm just paying to shape.
But no, yeah.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if someone, I mean, the idea obviously is to get a bride to see that and then book you because of that. And I don't know if it's happened more than once, but I know that I booked a wedding last year. Gorgeous black couple, both doctors, just minimal, and they were like, I saw the shoot that you did at this place with the black bride of the 40s Vogue shoot. And she said, I saw that on Pinterest and I had to have it. I didn't care who it was. She's like, I clicked on it, saw that you were also African American. And she's like, I almost cried because this is what I was wanting. And I was searching for this particular look and I couldn't get this minimal, really ethereal, but minimal, bold look with us. I booked the wedding from that. And I was like, see, this is why.
This is why it's
This is
working.
why. This is why we did it. And it just worked. And then, now we have like a long lasting relationship and she's always supporting everything that I do. And it was just such a return on investment on not even just the monetary thing, but it was just now I have a person who is like, those are my people. Like I know
Yeah.
my people are in the world now and it's starting to like trickle into where I need it to go. So
I love that. And
yeah.
I feel like that is really really important. I will say too like when you make these investments, like the trickle effect can be very long.
Yeah.
And I want to say that there's a movement right now in the industry that you shouldn't be shooting editorials. Like editorials are dead. People can tell that, feeds are more editorials than real weddings. Couples are getting
Mhm.
smarter. And I want to say
Yeah.
to you the way that you curate your images and the way that you communicate through the editorials is really important in today's environment. And so like just even being honest that they are editorials because like I've like you said booked weddings where it's like yeah this was a
Hmm.
test shoot but I can still shoot here goes a full gallery. I just don't want you to be deterred from the fact that, a lot of the planners that are like around me are like, they absolutely hate them. But as photographers, when you are communicating with your ideal client, you need them. You have to have them because otherwise, I vividly remember being at a stage of my career where I wanted to honor my clients, but those clients were not, their weddings were not in a way that were going to continue to move me forward in my career. And
Yeah.
it was like I
Yeah.
was shooting those weddings the best that I could, but I knew that if I was ever going to get a larger,
Lord, you so much.
yes, it's
Yeah.
like if I was going to get a
Yeah.
larger price point, this isn't going to communicate to that person. So just keep that in mind as you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you have to also be understanding too as a photographer that everything that you invest in may not give you the feedback and may not give you the return on your investment right away. It may not be like, oh, I'm going to do this shoot and I put so much money into it and it's so luxury. And then you go and publish it and no one wants to take it. And then you feel discouraged and then you just don't ever want to do it again. You know, sometimes it takes a while to let that algorithm work for you on Pinterest. And people sleep on Pinterest.
Yeah.
They think it's all Instagram, Instagram, Instagram. Get your butts on Pinterest. Pay for the ads on Pinterest because more people are searching on Pinterest. I mean, think about it. When people are like, it's frowned upon when people are like, oh my gosh, my clients send me, Pinterest boards of their inspo. I
Love
love
it. Oh my God,
it.
girl.
I love it.
I
I'm like,
love it.
why are you not allowing them to send you? Because essentially you want them to be inspired by your work, and there may be some things that like they are like, oh, I really wanted something of this shot, and then you're like, I've never done that before, but let me go try.
Yeah.
And it works. But Pinterest is just it to me. That's where you can really book a lot of clients who are, or a lot of brides who are just looking for new things. And if you're doing an editorial and it's not getting published really on any magazines, it's okay.
Yeah.
Go on Pinterest, still blog it because it may not come at that time, but later on, that a bride could be looking at an editorial that you did like 4 years ago, and then they're like, "Oh, this is so unique and different. I just booked this venue, and then I saw you did a shoot there. Would you want to shoot my wedding?" And then it may be 4 years down the line, but I mean, it worked.
But
So yeah,
it worked. And then something else I want to say that because I agree, Pinterest is a sleeping giant. Like I don't understand why in the wedding industry it's like 90% of people that are getting married go to Pinterest to pin photos. And it's like, and for whatever reason, there's like a disconnect there for us. And it's like, no, we should be the
yeah,
ones putting the photos on. But I
absolutely.
also want to say so another thing that I would say, especially when it comes to Pinterest and just the way that social media is changing, when you do these editorials, you need to hire somebody to do behind the scenes for you. And so that way you are truly using this as a PR marketing, all aspects for your business.
Yeah,
Hire a
yeah,
content creator, have them come shoot the couple, and it's under your brand for your, social media, because that is just another way for you to be able to get content for your business and then to be
yeah,
able to, show yourself shooting. And so I think that's a
yeah,
change that has happened over the last few years where that BTS is really important in terms of growth. And no matter where you are in your career, people want to know who the person is. And
yeah.
I think that that is something I will add to this as well. Like when you look at your budget, you cannot not have somebody, even if it's your friend with the phone, bring their
I
phone,
mean,
do some
with
BTS,
these phones now, it's that cinematic mode on.
and call it a day. Do what
That's
you got to do.
it.
Get that
and I
video.
and I will say, like in all honesty, like that's something that I have struggled with
Me too.
terribly. I'm a very private person by nature. Like most people didn't even know that I was even engaged for a year until I got married. So I'm that kind of private. So it's been a change for me in my business also, trying to just incorporate that, like someone is also watching me, because a lot of the time if you was to really watch a behind the scenes video of me, people would be like, is she okay? because
Same.
because I have the way I explain things through movement, as opposed to, all right, put your hand on her arm and this, and I'm like, imagine if you're this and this and this walking through a meadow and this and this, because I'm a very visual human being. So sometimes for me, it was a little insecure. I was a little insecure about that,
Yeah.
of being like, I don't know if I want to have someone,
See
all
me
up in my
work.
face.
It kind of seems like you're entering into my intimate space.
Yeah, I do have, I do have some thoughts about like having so much of your magic sauce being put out on the internet. I'm a little apprehensive of it.
I agree.
I do feel like there's a healthy balance where you could put some out, and especially things that you want to shoot, but I wouldn't do it all the time because honestly, you have to keep
Something.
something that's special to your brand. And if you put everything out, people are going to start to see it. They're going to start to copy it. And then now the brides are going to be like, okay, well, I can go to you or I can go to you. You both sell the same
And
thing.
you another person's cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like there's, you kind of lessen your value, I feel, if you put so much stuff out because then there's no surprise
Yes.
for them.
Yeah.
I just think there's a healthy balance, but look, we working on it, okay?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Same. I'm like entering into this era of being,
on
on
camera.
camera and like really trying to push myself. Like even doing this, I'm like, this has been uncomfortable, but it's been very beneficial because I know it helps a lot of people. But I also feel like I do agree with you that, we as wedding photographers, like this whole non-gatekeeper thing, I mean, I
Yeah,
get it and I really do get it. But at the same time, it's like we are all doing the exact same thing for, and it's like there's not a lot of things that are going to like make us different. And if you are
yeah,
literally giving the playbook on how to do it, and I feel like that's why in today's market it's just gotten harder because
yeah,
you have apps like Unscripted that give you everybody's poses, and it's like I was like, dang, this took me 5 years to figure this out, and now somebody can download
yeah.
an opposing
And
app.
then now everyone's shooting the same.
It's shooting
So
the
then it's like,
same.
how is your work unique? You have to also think as entrepreneurs and as a creative business, you have to also incorporate certain things that regular businesses are doing as well. Like Chick-fil-A. I mean, they are like the perfect example of
Mm,
this. Chick-fil-A, one, is not open on Sundays, as we all know, and then we all want Chick-fil-A on Sundays when they're not open. But like you have to think that like no one understands and no one knows why Chick-fil-A's chicken is just so good.
yeah,
You know, Zaxby's sells the same chicken sandwich, Popeye sells the same chicken sandwich, Bojangles, all of them. But there's something about Chick-fil-A that makes the line wrap around all the way out to the street and it's like always packed. It's not just, you know, it's not that it's just good. We don't know what makes it taste so good because they're not telling
they're
people.
not.
They're not telling people. They're not sharing their secrets and sharing the nutrition facts and all of the stuff like online to where you can go and download it. And that's what makes them a little bit unique. And if you talk to a person who is like really diehard Chick-fil-A fan and they're like, I don't know why this chicken tastes so good. It just does, but I keep coming back to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
It's just kind of that same concept. Like you can you can put enough out to keep you current and to keep you not so hidden, which is what I'm still.
Working through.
Okay, Lord. We're working on it. And so I feel like there's a healthy balance of doing that, but I just don't feel like you should put everything out
Yes.
to the open. Keep a little things that you keep your little secret sauce that's unique because then when a client comes to you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you do this? I've actually never seen this before." Then they're more inclined to book and they're more inclined to keep you as a client when they have babies. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I would say 85% of my clients, even ones that are destination, I go especially when I go to England and things like my UK clients, I go and shoot their maternity
Yeah.
photos at their house. And it's like we have like a long lasting relationship just because of the care and my little ways that I do things, and I just don't put it out online. Yeah, just keep your little sauce cooking a little bit.
I love that, and I feel like I really appreciate. Girl, I've given up on this camera. We're just gonna end with this one. I'm not going back. I don't know what's wrong with it today, but I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. I feel like today's conversation was really great, and I know that you actually, host editorials, and I would love to, allow the listeners to hear a little bit more about what you do and like what that looks like and how they can put, potentially participate.
Yeah. So I am now the sole owner of Cultivate Retreats. Cultivate is literally just something that I kind of Me and two other people, when we were doing it last year, we came up with the name Cultivate is just something that is not just an editorial, it's not a workshop, it's more of a self-care spa, I guess,
Love that.
for photographers. I want to show a little bit of love in the photography industry because a lot of the times what we were talking about with editorials, a lot of times we're overlooked. We're just like, oh, you're just a picture taker or you're just a person with a camera and then on to the next. But people don't realize that it's coming from our brain. Like this is something that is not necessarily taught. We have to feel it. Sometimes we have to prep, we have to sleep, before we go and do an editorial. At least I do. I take it very seriously. So it's just a way for us to also we're going to put on editorials that are definitely in the luxury space in different places all over the world, but it's also a place for us to come together as a community. And I know it's said, and it's said all over the world, like, oh, community over competition and community, but no, it really is. Like, I want us to, like, in our 4-day retreats, yeah, we're going to do two big large editorials, but that middle day I want us to go find an activity to where we go horseback riding or we do a cooking class together or we just play games and like have a really competitive game of Uno, like where we're just away from the creativeness of life and how we're always having to be creative all the time, which can be mentally taxing on your body. And it's just a way for us to kind of go to a spa-ish, where we still get beautiful editorial photos in different locations in the world, but we stay in like really lovely like Airbnbs, really beautiful hotels, and we eat because we be eating. And then we do two big large editorials, but then it's just a sense of community. I like to keep my numbers very small. We did one in Wales last year, and I think it was only 9 people.
Oh,
But we were
okay.
able to drive everyone around. There was no one having to like get in an Uber. And I wanted to feel like a luxury service. Like we pick you up at the airport and we just have fun. And then we do two big, large editorials. And then you go home and you feel inspired, refreshed. You might find new friends. You might find second shooters in different areas or locations or models in different countries that you like. Oh, I'm going to Barcelona for my family trip and I use this couple at this editorial, let me reach out to them. And now you have a couple in a long lasting relationship. So it's called Cultivate Retreats. You can follow us on Instagram. I'm taking it over and we are rebranding. So the numbers are pretty low right now, but I have so much cooking
I
up
love it.
for 2025. So yeah, come and join us.
Well, thank you again for coming on. And everyone, we will be back again next week for another episode. And if you have any questions or concerns or, anything you want us to talk about, head over to Beyond with Liz on Instagram, the website, the handle's the same everywhere. Drop me a line and we'll definitely talk
Yes.
soon. All right, guys. I'll see
Awesome.
you guys next week.